Is you start with a position, and then by the end of the debate, you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Police searching for a missing mother have arrested a 31-year-old woman who attended an East London police station. The woman was also taken to hospital as a precaution. 2 children reported missing from a centre for vulnerable mothers and children in London were found safe and well in Harwich earlier today. Officers were looking for 31-year-old Jamie Lee Kelly, who left the facility on Tuesday with her 3-year-old daughter and newborn baby boy. Soldiers could fill in for armed police after dozens of Metropolitan Police officers stood down from firearms duties following a murder charge against one of their colleagues. Scotland Yard requested military support for counter-terrorism duties if armed officers are unavailable. The officers have turned in their weapons after their colleague was charged with the murder of Chris Carber. Suella Braverman's ordered a review into the situation, which Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley has this evening welcomed. 24-year-old Carber was unarmed and died when he was shot in his car in South London last year. Former Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says it would be irresponsible to keep ploughing money into HS2 plans. The government has failed to deny reports claiming the Manchester leg is set to be scrapped. The East Midlands Parkway line is also under threat. The Sunday Telegraph claims the potential cost of the high-speed rail scheme has increased by £8 billion. The cuts could be made before the Tory party conference in Manchester next month. Downing Street has sought to play down reports the Prime Minister is drawing up plans to slash inheritance tax. The Sunday Times claims Rishi Sunak is considering reducing the current rate in the budget in March, despite a warning by Chancellor Jeremy Hunt he would have no headroom for tax cuts. Death duty is charged at 40%, but the vast majority of estates fall below the threshold, so married couples can pass on £1 million to their kids without being taxed. And finally, NASA has successfully landed the largest asteroid sample ever collected back on Earth. The specimen is a remnant of our early solar system, which scientists believe can shed light on how the planets formed and life on our planet began, which is estimated to be 4.5 million years old. It was checked for any damage and wrapped in thermal blanketing before being recovered by helicopter using a cargo net. This is GB News across the UK, on TV, in your car, on digital radio, and on your smart speaker by simply saying play GB News. Now it's time for headliners.
Thank you, Tatiana. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your nightly run through the next day's newspapers with three comedians. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearson. Tonight I'm joined by the man who answers the question, what do you get when you order Russell Brand from Wish? It's Darius Davies. And the woman who answers the question, who's willing to work with Darius Davies? All the way from New York, it's Catherine Henson. How are you both doing?
I've been libelled just now saying I'm Russell Brand from Wish, but other than that, I'm good.
Well, it was either Russell Brand or General Zod.
Or Jihadi Joe Wicks, that's another one, that's a good one.
There's a lot of nefarious characters you look like, Darius.
That's right.
Catherine, how are you?
Well, I'm sitting next to a Russell Brand wannabe, so I'm feeling unsafe, but we'll get through it.
Don't worry, we've got a fantastic HR department. Anyway, let's have a look at tomorrow morning's front pages. The Times leads with Army on standby after revolt by armed police. The Guardian has Met Police request support from SAS after officers down firearms. The Eye has Green Target delay will raise cost of living, Sunak warned. The Financial Times leads with Russia gains from oil surge after dodging G7 price cap. The Mirror has crash rash in rush to help. And the Star has Storm Agnes blasts in. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Express. Darius, what have they got?
So Daily Express lead with rebellion by gun cops forces soldiers to step in. This is following the shooting of 24-year-old Chris Cabba, who was unarmed, and he was shot by one of the special police force, the armed police from the Met. And now the officers are stepping down, and so they've had to call in the SAS to take part. And
one of the officers was charged.
He's been charged with murder for shooting Chris Cabba, but the police are in a difficult situation. I mean, usually, of course, I'm against the police, but they're in a difficult situation, and I understand why the other armed officers are refusing to be armed and be out there doing their jobs. Because if you can be charged for doing your job, why would you take that job if you're going to be charged for in the process of doing your job? And this Chris Cabba story, if you look into it, the top line is this unarmed man was shot, but actually he was in a car and he was trying to push the other cars out of the way.
Trying to barge.
Yeah, he's trying to barge it, and he was a Rappo, part of a drill group who he'd already had an offence. He'd been gone to prison when he was younger for having an imitation firearm. So it's not quite as easy, but...
And the police were responding to, I believe there was a firearms offence the previous day, and they believed that this car was involved in it.
That car had been flagged up as being charged the day before of having So the police were in a difficult situation. Then they were being rammed. He was asked to stop, didn't comply, tried to ram his way out, and he was shot. So there were mitigating circumstances. Of course, look, the police shouldn't have impunity to go around shooting innocent people. I think,
we could try it.
I know, we could try it.
I mean, they do it in America, so
yeah.
Why not?
I mean, look, the be-all and end-all is the SAS have been called in, so look, Londoners, rest assured, you can still be shot. The SAS are on it, and they're going to do a good job of it.
I mean, Catherine, does this worry you that the firearms officers in the Met who would respond to the most severe instance where somebody's got a gun or is committing a terrorist attack,
being misgendered,
aren't going to being misgendered on Twitter, aren't going to be there?
Does it worry me?
Yeah.
One of the perks of living here is that they're not there. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I had to ask today. I was wait. Some police have guns, and you guys were like just the special ones. I'm like, oh wow. Yeah. I feel very safe. I mean,
the rest of the police have a whistle they can blow.
Yeah, and even better, is it a rape one? No. But I mean, I think it's interesting that somebody's even being charged, because that also doesn't happen in America. So I was like, wow, they're actually reflecting on charging, what the officer did and whether or not he acted accordingly. Yeah. And then the fact that the whole force is even looking at it and being like, speaking with their families saying, like, is this worth having this job? Do I want to? I mean, I'm just like, these are questions Americans don't ask. They're just like, no, we'll just shoot each other back and forth forever. That's what we do. So I'm impressed, and that there's that sort of period of reflection. How that ends up, I don't know.
Okay. Well, what's on the front cover of the Eye, Catherine?
The front cover of the Eye, green target delay will raise cost of living, Sunak warned. So basically, I guess more than 100 economists have warned Rishi Sunak that his climate policy U-turn will raise the living expenses and put Britain behind other countries in the race to build a green economy.
I mean, this is sort of opposite to what, Rishi has said and what he intends. He intends to lower costs for people, but these economists are saying it's actually going to raise costs.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, isn't that what's already happening? I mean, just add on a few more pounds. Why not? We can't afford it. So,
but they're looking at Rishi's, extended the ban on new diesel and petrol cars to 2035. But I mean, Darius, it seems a bit daft to rush in and ban all these cars, and then everybody has to buy a new car, and that's somehow helping the environment. Everybody getting a new car instead of just keeping the car they've got.
Yeah, but that's not the intention, is it? It's not everyone getting a new car. You're not having a car. You're taking the train or the bus. That's actually what it is.
Yeah. It worked in communist East
Well,
Germany.
I mean, that's what it seems like to me. I don't see how this will raise the cost of living, like you say, having to go out and buy a new car. I think it's just pushing it down the line.
Yeah.
But it's good for now. I mean, everything's going up. So I don't believe what these economists are saying.
Yeah.
The 100 of them.
If you get 100 economists, I'm amazed 100 economists could agree on anything. But they definitely won't have it right if history is anything to go by. Next up, we've got the Daily Mirror. What's on the front cover there, Darius?
Daily Mirror report that crash rash in rush to help. Marcus Rashford jumped out of his car after a crash to check if anyone had been hurt. So his £700,000 Rolls Royce hit a car on a traffic island near Man United training ground, and he rushed out to check on the other drivers.
Yeah.
So actually what happened was Marcus Rashford crashed into someone and had the decency to check that they didn't die after he rammed them with his £700,000 Rolls Royce. That's the actual story.
Catherine, I love how the Mirror, which is obviously a left-leaning paper, so loves Marcus Rashford because he's always telling the government to give kids free school dinners, even though they're not free school dinners. They're school dinners paid for with my taxes.
But you should give them.
I don't know why Marcus Rashford can't pay for them. He's obviously much richer than me. But like Darius says, he crashes into this old woman and then does the basic thing of getting out to check she's okay. I don't know what else you could do in that situation, and they're saying he's some kind of hero for that.
I'm just wondering if he's going to also have to get a new car when the rest of us have to, energy-saving £700,000 Rolls Royce. Gosh, could you imagine having that much money?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that does many miles to the gallon. It probably does gallons to the mile.
Yeah.
But and it's a £700,000 Rolls Royce in white, which I think is the factory default. So he saved a few £100 there.
The Mirror also include in their high-level reporting. They say, "quote A source said modern cars are incredibly robust. That helped to protect him." Oh, thanks for that information. That's a good source, giving us. They've really gone to.
I would have thought a £700,000 Rolls Royce would just crumple like a leaf.
I wonder who this source was.
Anyway, let's finish this section off with the Star, Catherine. What have they got in the front?
Storm Agnes blasts in. 800-mile wide Atlantic horror brings 80-mile-per-hour gales, power cuts, flooding, and travel chaos. Not here in London, that's for sure.
Is
it coming? It's on its way.
It's on its way, apparently. And this is, I mean, I don't know, summer here, for all that we're told that the world is boiling, it's not boiling in the UK, as far as I can tell.
I hear rain, which seems standard, so that will happen. So, good. London and the UK remain the same.
Yeah. Darius, you worried about this making your hair go frizzing?
Well, not after using my new apple cider vinegar brush to rinse it and keep it smooth. Not really. It's coming up to winter. I'm surprised it's going to be raining at winter time in England. So, and I was shocked that it was hot during summer as well. That was a travesty.
So not much of a news story here. Anyway, that's it for part one. After the break, we have the lab leak lowdown, the Biden-Trump showdown, and a good old-fashioned hoedown, if Darius's shirt is to be believed. See you after the break.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
And Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearson. Joining me tonight are two top comedians, Darius Davies and Catherine Henson. And kicking things off in this section with the Mail now. And after international rules stop the government from stopping the boats, the government wants to change the rules. Catherine, tell us more.
Well, Suella Braverman warns global migration is putting, quote-unquote, unsustainable pressures on the West as she questions whether rules, including European Convention on Human Rights, are still, quote-unquote, fit for purpose. I've always wanted to say that. It's very British. So apparently she's previously stated her personal view that the UK should leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which was signed in 1950. So far this year, almost 24,000 people have been detected crossing the English Channel, despite Rishi Sunak's promise to stop the boats, although the figure is down from 2022.
Yeah.
I feel like all of this is just making up for all of the Russians who have fled to Bali.
But this seems to be something that's happening right across Europe. Just the other day, the German president said, Germany's pretty much full. We can't take in any more migrants. They've taken in, they took in over 1.5 million in one wave, and we've seen thousands of migrants come ashore in Lampedusa, the Italian island, last week. So seems to be this feeling across Europe that these rules that are set up to allow people to claim asylum in Europe, that was based on people getting here on steamships, rather than being able to fly in on jet planes or on a cheaply produced Chinese inflatable. So Darius, what do you make of this?
I think it was, obviously, I think we need to keep the European Conventions for Human Rights.
Why?
I think in this instance, it's being abused, but it does generally is good for most of our. I mean, I say that I don't even know what it is, but I think it sounds good. They need to stop the boats. But there was a quote I read here that was interesting, and I did underline it, and now obviously I've lost it. But basically, she basically referred to the right-wing conspiracy theory of. What's it called?
Great replacement.
The Great Replacement Theory. Yeah, I'll say, if we fail to meet these challenges, then our political institutions risk losing their democratic legitimacy, because she's saying they're going to come in and they're going to vote away the thing. So now it's kind of like they're hinting to it and putting it out there in the open, this thing that, maybe all these unfettered immigration can be used to dictate policy. So I thought that was interesting that they quoted that, and she actually said that on record.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that, pretty much any time that people have had a vote on immigration, whether it's Brexit. Not that I'm saying Brexit was about immigration, but it obviously tinges it. Anytime people have a vote or have an opinion, they don't want unfettered illegal migration with no security, and anybody can just rock up. They want some kind of system. I think people in Europe are pretty welcoming to skilled migrants and people who follow the right procedures, because that suggests when they get to Europe they'll be able to stand in a queue.
This Britain is Britain is a great country. That's why people want to come here. Without doubt, and this is a welcoming country. What's happening now is the immigration process is being abused. People, like the British people, if you are a woman with a family and you got nowhere to go, come here. But if you're a young 22-year-old guy who's coming over here to I'm going to come here, I'm just going to make money, and I'm looking to, that's not what we're opening the doors for. Yeah. We're opening we want to help people in need. We want to do that as a country, and we want the best immigrants who can help make this country great.
Yeah. We want to steal the best people from around the world. We want to leave those countries without doctors, and without nurses.
Yes, that's what we want. But we also we want to do our bit, and we want to help, and we're happy to help. But that's not who's coming over here. When you see people putting TikToks out, going, "Oh, yeah, look at this! I'm staying in a 5-star hotel. I've got 5G Wi-Fi. This, that. Actually, the Wi-Fi's too slow." It's like this is not. And then.
So you're talking about Australians?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, but people are gaming the system, and it's a shame, because it looks like they're ruining the system. They're going to change the system so that people who perhaps really do need to claim asylum in Europe won't be able to do it. Yeah.
Like Mad Dad.
Don't worry, your dad's already here, Darius.
Yes.
Anyway, The Independent now, and a government minister has admitted that inheritance tax is deeply unfair. Actually, all tax is deeply unfair, Darius.
Yeah, but this is particularly deeply unfair because you're taxed basically 3 times. So, government minister says inheritance tax is deeply unfair and claims it could be cut. So one of Rishi Sunak's cabinet ministers says it's deeply unfair, and they're looking at trying to see if they can, reduce it or stop this inheritance tax. However, there's not really much room for them to do that because they rely on this money. So Jeremy Hunt is basically ruled it out. Yeah. But it's basically you pay tax during your life, then you pay tax afterwards.
Yeah. So you're being taxed again on money you've already paid tax on.
So
when you're dead, so you can't even get angry about it.
So people who are for this say, it's only a very small number of people, but this inheritance tax is paid over a state's worth over $325,000, which. Maybe it just doesn't even sound like a lot of money.
$325,000.
That's not.
Sounds like a lot of money to me.
I mean, it is. But if you've got a house, that's not actually that much.
Well, what a time to not have a house.
Yeah, but if your mum's got a house, which she probably does, and she gives it to you.
I am from America.
Exactly. But this is GB News, so it applies to people from Britain. So it's not like unheard of that it's going to be a lot of tax. And then what happens? You can't pay that tax. Well, then. We're going to have to take that house off you. You're going to have to sell that house. So
all of a sudden, the state is seizing property from families, and we're in We're living under communism again.
You will own nothing and be happy.
Yeah, you'll own nothing and you'll be incredibly unhappy, I think is a better way of putting it. But, I mean, it isn't one of the issues here that rich people just find a way around it. When the Duke of Buccleuch died, one of the biggest landowners in the UK, I thought, wow, the state's going to get a dividend from this, from the inheritance tax. But no, all his property and everything was held in a trust.
Yeah.
So then his next of kin didn't pay.
Well, rich people don't pay taxes, right? That's the way that works. So it's just us.
Yeah.
So don't buy property.
Yeah, well, so that's actually what's going to happen. It's like, even if you are rich, you can afford to pay that anyway. Even if you do pay it, you can afford to pay it. But if you're just like middle of the road, you get this thing now, you've got to pay 40% on 325. Where are you going to find that from? You're gonna, I've just found it down there. You've not got the money. So it actually applies to like the little guy, not the big guy, as ever.
As ever. The Telegraph now, and the Chinese lab at the centre of the COVID leak theory is in trouble for violating biosafety rules. Hey, what's the worst thing that could happen, Catherine?
Well, you said it first. They are suspected of the COVID leak and have been stripped of the U.S. funding for violating the biosafety rules. In these experiments that apparently this lab did, which occurred between 2018 and 2019, one chimeric virus killed 75% of infected humanized mice within 2 weeks.
So that sounds a bit more deadly than COVID.
It's a lot of mice.
Yeah. It's a lot of humans if it got out as well.
Yeah. So in the months before the pandemic, the Institute had registered patents for repairs to ventilation symptoms and broken seals, and it is believed to have worked on viruses at inappropriate biosafety levels.
Jeez.
Always change your air vents.
Yeah, and this seems to corroborate a lot of what was described as far-right conspiracy theories up until recently. Well, the COVID lab leak, if this is the same lab, they're doing these experiments on novel bat coronaviruses
in Wuhan.
And like, making them deadly in Wuhan, and also they didn't have the proper safety equipment and protocols to stop it escaping. I mean, this pretty much suggests that, the lab leak...
Well, the best thing about the whole lab leak theory is you weren't allowed to say it, because that's racist to even suggest that this is a racist thing to say. I said, OK, so the actual official theory, then, is that some Chinese person ate a bat. That's even more racist. That's more racist than saying that. But the best thing is this quote is a quote from one of the doctors there, Dr. Daszak, and he says the following: none of the work changed animal viruses so they can infect humans. They only infected human cell cultures, and that's a big difference. That's like me saying, oh, no, none of the work I did was responsible for this, even though it was definitely responsible for this thing that definitely happened. But you can trust me, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah. And also the revelation that the US is stopping funding it.
Yeah.
I didn't know the US was funding these Chinese biolabs in the first place. And I don't really understand why the US is funding a coronavirus lab in Wuhan in the first place.
Well, apparently they're funding these labs all over the world. And there was, a lot of, these labs are being funded apparently all over the world, and there was a lot that were being funded in Ukraine, and suddenly there's been less. I don't want to go into my conspiracy theories.
Right. Well, I'm just happy I get to go back to eating bat soup.
Every cloud. Anyway, the Mail now, and a poll has revealed Donald Trump's secret weapon to get him re-elected, and it's Joe Biden, Darius.
Daily Mail reports that Joe Biden's polling disaster. President is now a massive 10 points behind Trump, following a week of embarrassing guffs at the United Nations and the Congressional Black Caucus. Joe Biden gave a speech at the Congressional Black Caucus, got LL Cool J's name wrong, then referred to him as a boy, which is a term widely considered to be derogatory within the black community.
Yeah.
I would argue that calling any 50-year-old man a boy is pretty derogatory. But, so he's done that. I think it's hard. I don't know how anyone can look at Biden and think he's doing a good job. I look at Biden and think, well, this man defies science. He literally falls upstairs. Like, how can you fall upstairs? You're American. He's not. Do you not think he's hopeless? Is he not hopeless? Everyone hates Trump, but everyone knows that. But people argue, oh, Trump's rubbish, but like, look at Biden. Look, he's who's in power. Look how bad the country is doing right now.
You're treating me like I'm Biden right now. I feel like you're yelling at me like I'm Biden. I mean, I don't know. You know, he reminds you of your grandpa. I don't understand it either.
Grandpa's dead as well.
See, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it warms certain people's hearts, you know? Yeah. It reminds my mom of the husband she never had, right?
Would you want somebody else to come in and perhaps replace Joe Biden as a Democratic candidate in the upcoming elections? I know Michelle Obama has been touted as a possibility.
Oh, well, you know more than me then. I was going to say Darius. He could take a stab at it.
He's not American.
I know. Okay, it was a joke. Haha. Yeah, but we've placed a bet on the Kennedys. So for that reason and that reason alone.
Of course. Yeah. RFK.
Yeah.
He could swoop in and steal some thunder. He could be the Barack Obama.
Yeah, we just have some money down on him. So you know.
How much did you put down?
That was my husband's jurisdiction for that one, but enough for me to say this on TV.
Right. Hopefully it'll do enough to swing it. Anyway, that's it for part 2, but coming up, we've got the age of consent in question. Sorry, Darius. Violent trans activists, aren't they all? And a football story for the mixed ability lot out there. Stay tuned, folks.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the week ahead, it is certainly going to remain unsettled, especially middle of the week, potentially turn very windy for some of us. Back to the here and now, and we have got low pressure generally dominating the Atlantic. That's going to bring in bands of rain as we go through the next 24 hours, and note the tightly packed isobars indicating it's going to be very windy. So here's the situation as we end Sunday. Got a band of rain spreading its way across the country, some heavy pulses on it, and it's going to be a fairly windy night, especially across the northern half of the country, turning a little bit drier and clearer across the south as we end the night. And for all of us, it's going to be a fairly mild one, temperatures staying in double figures. So we start Monday off on a fairly sunny note across many parts of England and Wales. Still maybe some overnight rain to contend with across the very far southeast. And really the day is going to be a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. The showers mainly focus across more northern parts of the country. Could see some heavy showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland too. And quite a breezy day, especially again in the north. That may temper the temperatures somewhat up here, but down towards the southeast, feeling quite warm, highs of 23 degrees. Tuesday, another day of sunny spells and scattered showers. Could see some heavy showers initially across the east, and then later on this more organised band of rain spreading in from the west as we go through the course of the day. And that sets us up for a very windy middle part of the week. Watch out for Wednesday. Warnings are in force for the north and west.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton, for 2 hours packed full of unfiltered opinions, unique takes, and fiery debates. I guarantee you blockbuster guests and exclusive reporting with no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly.
And no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mail now, and in the wake of Russell Brand, there's bad news for David Walliams. It looks like the law could change to stop middle-aged men dating much younger women, Catherine.
Yep, Russell Brand back again. His accuser, Alice, calls for change in law to stop men in their 30s having sex with 16-year-old girls, as she claims comic demanded explicit bath picture and described how her parents were powerless to stop the pair from dating. She's now 33 and has opened up about how Russell allegedly demanded photos of her in the bath, which she refused to send, while she describes that her parents couldn't stop her from dating him.
Yeah.
I think it was the fact that Motorola razors were the way you took photos back in 2006. That's why she didn't send him a bath picture. I don't know how that would have worked out.
Yeah,
but
a 16-year-old like in 2006. I mean, you'd need probably your mum and your dad in there holding the camera,
the BlackBerry,
and the flash and everything to get the picture.
They didn't even have 3G then. Imagine how long it would have taken to send it. She probably would have got it right now.
He'd still be
legal.
downloading.
Yeah, be downloading now.
Maybe she'd have to send it to Russell Brand in a jiffy bag.
Yeah.
I think that's how it would happen. But yeah, Darius, you must have some...
So what's interesting about this, obviously, he's 30, she was 16-year-old, and we all agree that that's inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
But why? And it's funny that it's, all the newspapers as well, they agree, oh, this is inappropriate, they're a 30-year-old man, and yet because this 16-year-old girl, she can't consent to this, she's not real, we're saying at the same time, a 12-year-old can consent to going on puberty blockers and to making these life-changing, altering decisions forever. So it's always with the press, it's the hypocrisy of having it both ways. This girl's, she's too stupid to know her mind, she didn't do that, and because it suits their narrative of Russell Brand as this guy that he's the enemy of the day. But yet on the other hand, it's like, but 12-year-old, yeah, fine. You can listen to a 30-year-old man in that case when he says go and chop off your breast, that's fine. So it's like, come on, that's where I'm looking at this thinking it's like, it's outrageous. But yeah, I do think it's inappropriate to have sex with a 16-year-old. That's just me. I also think it's inappropriate to get your breast chopped off at 16 as well.
It's strange that it is. It's strange that it is, it wasn't illegal for that age gap, because I know in America they've got age gap laws. I think if you're 16 there's a 2-year limit or something, Catherine.
I think it's state by state.
All right.
Yeah, I think Alabama you can be 5.
But actually they said they're talking about staged consent, so there should be a thing that if you're 16 you can't sleep with someone older than 21, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea, and a law that is going to be popular. Anyway, moving on to the Telegraph next, and tell me, Darius, are these trans activists embodying the gentle, nurturing spirit of femininity as expected?
Well, apparently, the Telegraph reports trans activists behind a campaign of violence against women. Rishi Sunak has been warned. So women are being threatened with social ostracism, loss of livelihood and physical violence. And the women's rights campaigners have written to the Prime Minister to ask him to take action against an escalating campaign of violence and intimidations by trans rights activists. And I think you only have to just turn on the television or look on any sort of social media and you can see that trans rights activists, you know, I don't know why I've got myself embroiled with them now after the last story.
But you don't like one.
Yeah, that is right. But don't know which one I'm transitioning from what to what. But they're malevolent and they can be violent and they have been violent and they will go after you physically and after your career and after anything they can to get you. And I think, you know, social ostracism is just one of the things they're talking about. But we've seen actual physical violence and women being intimidated, and we saw recently at a trans ride rally in London where they said punch a turf in the face.
Yeah.
And then that was a former man who was in prison for violence saying punch a woman in the face, and the man said, oh, it's just a joke.
Yeah.
So good to know that you can tell jokes on trans pride, but not on comedy stages. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, and it seems to be a two-tier justice system where, you know, if somebody had said that about transgender people, had directed that level of violence to transgender people, you know, they'd have been locked up, investigated by the police. We've seen people investigated just for, Harry Miller, for example, retweeted a limerick that was, you know, mocking trans people.
It was a very naughty limerick.
It was a very
naughty
most
limerick.
Of them are. Most of them.
A very naughty limerick.
Most of them relate to, you know, somebody who's come from Nantucket. So, it was, you know, it was rude, but it was nowhere near this level of intimidation.
Well, it wasn't.
Violence.
It was a funny limerick, but it wasn't go punch a turf in the face.
Yeah.
The difference.
Exactly.
I just think have we not learned that violence on whatever you are aiming to accomplish, violence really isn't the way to do it. I think, or any kind of like hate speech, regardless of what your opinion is about anything. I mean, I think a lot of groups are just trying to force other people, and this isn't, I'm speaking of this group in general, but just people who are in groups who think one thing are trying to force other people to feel differently about it rather than focusing, I guess, on the good or how they can accomplish that in a sort of non-violent way.
Instead of leading and, you know, providing a good example.
But I will just say, this all started because I guess some women want to argue that they have a right to single-sex spaces because they don't want to share the bathroom with a trans woman. I mean, I don't know. I've never paid attention who's in the bathroom with me. I'm in there to do one thing. I mean, if you think a trans woman's bad, go to Edinburgh during the Fringe. It's a zoo in the bathroom. Like that, it's farm animals. That's what's in the bathroom. So, you know, and they're all like, you know. So I don't know. I just.
I don't think it's just what's, you know, coming out of people's orifices. I think it's also the, you know, level of threat, and also, I mean, I've got a daughter. I don't want to, you know, take her into the you know, I don't want her to turn around and see, you know, a bloke, because basically the way gender ideologists say it is anybody can just say they're a woman and they're magically a woman. And, you know, understand if a trans person has put lots of effort in and looks like a woman, fair enough. But if you haven't, you know what I mean? If you're just halfway, like Darius.
I think trans rights activists have done more to harm the cause of trans people than anyone else, because 10 years ago, trans people existed. 20 years ago, and no one really bothered. They went about their lives and everyone was fine. But now there's a certain, you know, anime, hentai emoji on their Twitter. That's just abusing the system, and people are like, no, we're not having this. And most trans people just want to get up, do their job, and they hate all of this being dragged through them. And I feel sorry for them. Legitimate trans people whose lives are being ruined by these absolute people with actual mental disorders that need help, that are using them as an excuse to get nefarious things and misappropriating the cause, in my opinion.
I'd agree with that. Anyway, the Times now, and it looks like Labour want to corner the psychopath vote by trying to make it easier for women to literally kill babies. Catherine.
Okay. So I guess there's calls to change archaic abortion law as fifth woman faces court. In the latest case at Westminster Magistrates Court in central London last week, the woman's defense lawyer said the nature of the offense has garnered a huge amount of publicity, and other women have been subject to death threats because this woman has appeared in court accused of having an illegal abortion and is the fifth to have been prosecuted this year.
Yeah, I mean, when we say this is an illegal abortion, I think, you know, people think, you know, this might have been some tiny little collection of eggs that was coming out. But this is a 32 to 34 week old fetus, and that's pretty much full term. It's just a few weeks away from being born. So this was a baby. This was a viable baby that could, without any assistance, live and breathe outside the womb. So, it does seem like we need to have some kind of restrictions on this kind of thing happening. I understand, abortion should be legal up to a certain point, but, Darius, this seems...
I didn't know the date was 30 weeks. I think this is such a polemical situation, but ultimately, is this what we want our judiciary to be focusing on? I think this is an education. Why has she waited till 32 weeks? This is like a medical issue.
Well, it was over lockdown, apparently. So another terrible tragedy sort of spurred on by lockdown.
And
so I guess she wasn't having the face-to-face meetings with health professionals, and people could get abortion drugs over the internet. So she got this stuff because you didn't have to go in and see a healthcare provider to get these drugs.
I think it's really hard to judge the scenario around it because we haven't been told,
I just judged it. She's a monster and she should be in jail.
Yeah, but
I think what she did is wrong, but I think if you can't...
The circumstances around it could be, what if she was raped? We don't know. And then, or what if she's 16? Or what if she can't afford it? What if she didn't realize she was pregnant? There's certain things.
She didn't realize at 34 weeks.
There's a whole TV show in America.
She ordered abortion drugs without realizing she was pregnant.
Yeah, but why didn't she use Amazon Prime? It's next day delivery. She could have done it much quicker.
She could have done it here is they were sent second class.
Yes.
And by the time they arrived,
it was 32 weeks later. The world. I don't think this should be prosecuted. I think this is a waste of judicial time. What it should be done is there should be checks and balances so this can't happen again. This is a failure that's happened that has reached this point.
Yeah.
So there should be sending her to court will happen again unless there's processes in place to mitigate this. So this is a failure of the system around all of this and how she got access to be able to get these things. That's
so we should never have a lockdown again and people should see health providers face to face.
We shouldn't have had lockdown in the first place. Everyone warned lockdown was going to cause more problems than it did. And lo and behold, now we're out of it. We see, we're paying off all these people who were sat at home getting all their money for nothing. She had to have an abortion at 32 weeks. Loads of people are getting cancer because they missed all their diagnoses. This was obvious at the time. This was suggested at the time that if you were sick, you were vulnerable, stay at home, shield. No, what we're going to do is we're going to get everyone to stay at home and shield, even though you're 21 and you're in the prime of your life and it's not going to affect you. So that everyone knew that at the time.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the Express next, and she'll snatch your milk, but she'll help you set up a limited company. Is there a place for Thatcherite politics in schools, Darius?
Well, the Daily Express report that Thatcher's policy guru says children should be taught to set up businesses. Sir John Redwood called on careers advisors to teach young people about the benefit of working for themselves to promote entrepreneurship. I don't think he is aware of OnlyFans, but a lot of them are going into that.
Or drug dealing.
Yeah, or drug dealing.
The 13-year-old millionaires on YouTube. Do you know what I mean? That's a real thing. They should be setting up a thing to help adults like me do that.
Paid for by a tax on anybody under 20 who's making this much money. They're the people who should be taxed. By the time you get to our age, you sort of are my age anyway. You sort of you feel like you should be making a bit of money.
I want a home that the government can take from me.
Yeah.
But you know what this is actually? What this actually is we should actually teach usable skills to children. Because we're like, when was the last time you ever learned, used oué le piscine in French or something? I don't know.
Teach us something useful. Instead of trigonometry and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that's part 3 done, but coming up, we've got annoying millennials and a farting dog. Sounds like the final of Britain's Got Talent. Absolutely, do not miss it.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians
to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got The Guardian next with a story about the BBC where Bring Your Child to Work Day is actually a threat.
Next, BBC chair faces tougher scrutiny over conflicts of interest. So after the row that led to Richard Sharp's exit, a more rigorous selection process is now in place. Candidates for the top job at the BBC will be subject to greater scrutiny than ever in an effort to avoid a repeat of the conflict of interest row that led to its chair, Richard Sharp, resigning in April.
So he gave a loan to Boris Johnson, which does suggest some sort of political influence.
He just forgot about the $800,000, the secret £800,000 loan. Yeah. He just forgot that he gave to Boris Johnson. But in an information pack seen by The Observer, candidates are asked to provide not only interests that might be relevant to work of the BBC, but also ones that could lead to a real or perceived conflict of interest, and also whether or not they have a predilection for children.
Or our Russell Brand.
Which will be looked upon favourably. Candidates...
In the interest of Ofcom balance and BBC Verify getting on our case, that was a joke. It's been a joke for 3 years. Before that, it was absolutely accurate.
Yeah. But they're now going to be told to reveal anything they've said online, or basically just reveal their conflicts of interest, of which there's probably be, any other £1 million loans to heads of states and stuff. Yeah, it's normal stuff, really.
Busy HR people will just be poking around, making sure they haven't done anything nefarious.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, The Guardian now reporting on a strange double standard that lets football club owners place bets on games that they could influence, Catherine.
The FA accused of double standard in allowing club owners to bet on football games while banning the players. The disclosures involve Matthew Benham, the owner of the Premier League club Brentford Football Club, whose star striker Ivan Toney is serving an 8-month suspension for breaking the FA's strict gambling rules.
So the player is banned for breaking these rules, but the
club owner, he's one of the select few millionaire owners who get to enjoy a opaque arrangement with the FA that allows them to be involved in betting.
Yet again, rich people. There's one rule for rich people.
I feel like that's the perk of being rich, that everything is an opaque arrangement,
Just need to offshore it in Hong Kong or something.
Yeah.
We've got the Telegraph next, and the millennials and Gen Zers are going to fix everything. But what will they complain about then, Catherine?
Well, apparently the millennials and Gen Z, I say Z, I'm going to say Z, okay, are about to remake capitalism, but they need the boomers. The bank of mom and dad is already delivering this transfer of affluence. The great wealth transfer is estimated around $100 trillion, 820 billion pounds, and will have global implications. In the UK alone, at least 5.5 trillion pounds, nearly 3 times our annual GDP, will be passed from this author's generation, the baby boomers, to millennials.
Wow, that's
and
a lot
Gen
of
Z.
avocado toast.
Yeah, I want to know where I can get my hands on just like 50K. I will be happy with 50K.
Yeah. I think when my dad dies, I'm going to get a bill. You know what I mean?
You're going to get a bill?
Yeah, none of this inheritance stuff.
I'm getting nothing.
But what's interesting, this author says they think that these Zennials, as they refer to them, they're going to be doing socialist capitalism, and they're going to be using their money for good. And they're saying, no, but they need our guidance as boomers, that we need to guide them with how they're going to do the money. No, once they've got the money, they're going to be the same as everyone else, and they're going to hoard their money like everyone does.
I mean, as soon as someone gets money, they turn conservative.
Yeah,
it's going to be beautiful to watch.
I mean, my mom's garage is filled with like dishware. Do you know what I mean? Just 12 different sets of dishware, and it's like I think
You're lucky she's in America, because if she's in England, you'd only receive 10 of those.
So let's quickly see if we can fit this one in 30 seconds. We've got the Express now, and people have been awarded over £1,000 after a dog farted on them. I believe this is a crime called breach of the ring piece.
Yeah, a couple was sat behind a dog on Singapore Air, which is a good airline, and this had a service dog, and the dog just sat there grunting and farting the whole flight.
Really?
Yeah, they were offered $150 as compensation. We were on a 13-hour flight from Singapore to New Zealand, and the dog just farted the whole way. So actually, really, the whole flight could possibly say, hey, I was assaulted by the dog's farts as well, but that's incredible.
Yeah,
but,
it should have been on Aer Lingus.
She thought it was her husband's phone at first. What phone is that?
Yeah, what phone smells like that? Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Times leads with Army on standby after revolt by armed police. The Guardian has Met Police requests support from SAS after officers down firearms. The Eye has Green Target delay will raise cost of living, Sunak warned. The Financial Times leads with Russia gains from oil's surge after dodging G7 price cap. The Mirror has Crash Rash in rush to help. And the Star has Storm Agnes blasts in. And those were your front pages. And that's it for tonight's show. Thanks to Darius and Catherine. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. when Simon Evans will be joined by Nick Dixon and Josh Howie. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, it's good night, good morning, and stay woke.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. I'm Craig Snell. Well, looking ahead to the week ahead, it is certainly going to remain unsettled, especially middle of the week, potentially turn very windy for some of us. Back to the here and now, and we have got low pressure generally dominating the Atlantic. That's going to bring in bands of rain as we go through the next 24 hours, and note that the tightly packed isobars indicating it's going to be very windy. So here's the situation as we end Sunday. Got a band of rain spreading its way across the country, some heavy pulses on it, and it's going to be a fairly windy night, especially across the northern half of the country, turning a little bit drier and clearer across the south as we end the night. And for all of us, it's going to be a fairly mild one, temperatures staying in double figures. So we start Monday off on a fairly sunny note across many parts of England and Wales. Still maybe some overnight rain to contend with across the very far southeast. And really the day is going to be a mixture of sunshine and scattered showers. The showers mainly focus across more northern parts of the country. Could see some heavy showers for Scotland and Northern Ireland too. And quite a breezy day, especially again in the north. That may temper the temperatures somewhat up here, but down towards the southeast, feeling quite warm, highs of 23 degrees. Tuesday, another day of sunny spells and scattered showers. Could see some heavy showers initially across the east, and then later on this more organised band of rain spreading in from the west as we go through the course of the day. And that sets us up for a very windy middle part of the week. Watch out for Wednesday. Warnings are in force for the north and west.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30am.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom. GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m.